Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are exploring a truly fascinating, centuries-old framework that completely redefines how we think about governance. I am just so excited to guide you through this, because we're looking at a deeply sophisticated system of self-determination, and honestly, it's operated flawlessly for generations. Originating with the 𝗍𝗲𝗄 people in the Horn of Africa, primarily in present-day Ethiopia, this system exists entirely outside of the political structures we're so used to seeing today. It's a blueprint that perfectly balances power, community, and the environment in a way that, frankly, modern governments are still struggling to figure out.
So is democracy exclusively a Western invention? It's a pretty provocative hook, I know, but it really challenges a widely held assumption. In the modern world, we so often talk about democracy as something that originated solely in the West, born in Athens, refined in Europe, and then exported to the rest of the world. We just assume that organized, democratic self-determination is a purely Western concept. But as you'll see, historical reality paints a very different and much richer picture.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at how democracy actually plays out today. In theory, we envision this perfect ideal, right? True democracy, defined as the authentic, unfiltered voice of the entire populace. But when we look at the lived reality across human history, despite endless rhetoric about government by the people, political structures are consistently subverted. Those exact mechanisms meant to empower everyday citizens are frequently co-opted. This gives rise to kleptocracies where elites just siphon off public wealth, or we see a slide into tyranny where state power is consolidated purely to suppress dissent. The promise of collective self-determination often gets entirely stifled by the very machinery of governance that was designed to protect it.
All right, moving to section 1. Meet the 𝗘𝗲𝗄 system.
What if I told you there was a paradigm-shifting solution to those entrenched power dynamics, and it's been hidden in the complex, egalitarian traditions of East Africa this whole time? Operating entirely without a central dictator, the 𝗘𝗲𝗄 system is exactly that. It's the indigenous democratic framework of the 𝗍𝗲𝗄 people. But it is so much more than just a political custom. It's the whole shebang, a comprehensive socio-political, economic, and spiritual framework. It organizes 𝗍𝗲𝗄 society into distinct, age-based classes known as 𝗬𝗲. Unlike Western democratic systems which so often rely on partisan politics and these fleeting, exhausting election cycles, 𝗘𝗲𝗄 is a living constitution. It's integrated into the very life course of the individual, from birth all the way to elderhood.
Let's move on to section 2, the 8-year cycle. So the crucial point is really the number 8. To understand exactly how the 𝗍𝗲𝗄 people ensure a peaceful transfer of power, we have to look at how the entire system is anchored by the 𝗘𝗲𝗄 rule. It mandates a strict cycle of exactly 8 years. During this time, a specific age grade, the 𝗘𝗲 class, takes on the absolute responsibility of leadership, and after exactly 8 years, no exceptions, this class must step down. Power is mandated to transfer through a peaceful, ritualized process to the next generation. It acts as a brilliant, built-in term limit that absolutely prevents the concentration of power that plagues so many modern governments.
Now, during their 8 years in power, this active 𝗘𝗲𝗄 class takes on 3 very heavy, distinct responsibilities before passing the torch. First up, legislating. They create laws based on absolute social consensus, which is a concept known as 𝗓𝗧. Second, they're responsible for adjudicating. This means they actively resolve conflicts and ensure justice is maintained throughout the whole community. And third, protection. They must physically defend the land and the people. Once their 8 years are up, they pass that torch. This beautifully ensures that leadership is always representative of the current generation's vitality, while the outgoing leaders step back into an advisory role, providing all that much-needed wisdom and continuity to the new class.
Section 3. 3 unparalleled pillars.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can visually juxtapose a standard ruling elite against the 𝗍𝗲𝗄 leadership. Historians actually struggle to categorize the 𝗘𝗲𝗄 system because it doesn't fit the traditional molds of a monarchy, an oligarchy, or even a standard parliamentary democracy. It rests entirely on zero concentration of power. A traditional ruler often acts unilaterally, right? Consolidating power to enforce their own will. But the leader within the 𝗘𝗲𝗄 system, the 𝗖𝗲𝗄, operates entirely differently. He isn't a ruler in the traditional sense at all. He's a facilitator, a mediator, and a servant of the law. He literally cannot act unilaterally because he is strictly bound by the 𝗬𝗎𝗪𝗀, the Great Assembly, where the people actively gather to discuss and refine the laws of the land.
The second pillar here is radical egalitarianism. The 𝗘𝗲𝗄 system is deeply rooted in the core belief that all 𝗍𝗲𝗄 are equal, and it brilliantly bridges generational divides. Because every man eventually passes through every stage of the system over the course of his life, the experience of being a leader is intimately tempered by the experience of being a citizen. Think about that for a second.
Imagine a modern political system where every leader knows for a fact they will inevitably return to being an everyday citizen, totally stripped of any special privileges or immunities. That is radical egalitarianism in practice. You balance the strength of youth with the wisdom of elders. You aren't born into a permanent ruling class, you simply share the burden of leadership for a specific time, and then you return to everyday life.
And our third pillar is sustainability, which is anchored by this beautiful foundational bedrock known as 𝗲𝗏. 𝗲𝗏 is an oromo-ethical concept that encompasses moral duty, respect for the environment, and the interdependence of all living things. You see, 𝗘𝗍𝗺 isn't just about managing people, it's about sustainably managing the relationship between the community and the earth for future generations. Every single decision regarding land, cattle, and resources is made with the sustainability of those future generations firmly in mind. This ancient idea is essentially a masterclass in sustainability that modern environmental frameworks are currently trying and, honestly, often failing to replicate.
Section 4. A global treasure.
Zooming out from the mechanics to a global perspective, the modern world has actually finally begun to recognize this monumental historical achievement. In 2016, a massive milestone occurred. UNESCO officially recognized the 𝗘𝗍𝗺 system as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. This wasn't just a polite nod to an interesting local custom. It cemented 𝗘𝗍𝗺's status as a true global treasure. This formal acknowledgement proves, without a doubt, that highly organized, peaceful, and democratic governance thrived in Africa long before modern geopolitical borders were ever drawn by outside forces.
And that leads us to a pretty profound realization. Democracy is not a destination, but a practice. In an age where modern societies are increasingly plagued by polarization, partisan deadlock, and just a massive erosion of public trust, the 𝗘𝗍𝗺 system offers a powerful lesson. The Oromo people didn't invent this ancient blueprint to appear modern to the outside world. They developed it out of sheer necessity for survival, peace, and the preservation of human dignity. It absolutely proves that survival requires a constant, unyielding commitment to consensus and the rule of law. It's a blueprint that functions on the active strength of its people rather than the consolidated might of its leaders.
So, this leaves us with one final vital question to consider as we look toward the future. How can we build systems that truly serve the humanity they represent? Studying the 𝗘𝗍𝗺 system peels back a layer of human history that has been overlooked by traditional academics for way too long. Perhaps the best way to fix the broken, gridlocked political systems of our future is to actually look back to the ancient, deeply democratic heart of the Oromo people for inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you found this as fascinating as I did, keep exploring, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next one.